In a forgotten town where corruption is law and silence is survival, one young man arrives, not with power or protection, but with only two things: a journal and a mission. Akin Tola is a dreamer, a government youth corps member posted to Ogidan, a place where schools are only complete on paper and boreholes exist only in ledgers. A town where deceit wears a uniform and the truth is a threat. But Akin refuses to look away. He writes, he investigates, he speaks, and in doing so, he awakens intrigue, stirs emotions, and makes enemies in places where shadows rule. And then he meets Tola, a singer whose voice rises like prayer in a town covered in dust. Together, they become a quiet storm of love, courage, and hope. But storms that defy power don't go unpunished. What follows is a story of pain, betrayal, and systemic deceit. Akin is falsely accused, dragged, and condemned, buried in a prison designed to erase men like him. But Akin doesn't disappear. He transforms. He becomes the myth they whisper about, the vigilante they fear, the flame that won't die. The new man. This is not just a tale. It's a reckoning, a story of resistance and legacy, of words more powerful than bullets, of love that refuses to surrender, and of the true cost of speaking truth in a broken world. If truth has a price, this story shows what it means to pay it in full. Ogidan was a dusty town where dreams came to die. The red earth clung to the feet of those who walked its paths, and the sun bored down with a weight that felt personal. Buses coughed smoke into the air, traders barked for attention, and the silence of poverty lay over everything like a second skin. Into this town came a young man named Akin Tola. Tall and lean, with neatly combed hair and glasses that framed eyes too kind for the world he was walking into. Akin stepped off the bus like a soldier entering war. He carried two things: a worn suitcase and a leather-bound journal filled with poems. His posting letter had assigned him to the local projects office in Ogidan, and he took that duty seriously, very seriously, unlike others before him. Akin did not see Ogidan as a punishment or a forgotten corner to waste time and draw a salary. He saw it as a mission, a test of principle, a stage where integrity could shine. He walked past half-finished schools, abandoned boreholes, and empty health centers that were all recorded as completed on paper. The rot was not hidden. It was worn like a badge by the powerful. But Akin wasn't afraid. Not yet. Olowo's bar came alive at night, and so did she. Her name was Tola. And her voice. Her voice was not from Ogidan. It belonged to the stars. Every Friday night she stood by the crooked microphone, dressed in a faded yellow dress, her hair tied up in a scarf that revealed the curve of her neck. When she sang, the noise in the bar dropped. Even the drunks listened. Akin heard her on his second week in town. He hadn't meant to stay. He never liked bars. But her voice held him still, like a child staring at fire. They met after her performance. She laughed when he said he wrote poems. Poems? Here? She said, amused. Someone has to remember how words used to mean something, Akin replied. She stared at him for a long moment. You're not from here, are you? No, he said. But I think I was sent here for a reason. That was the beginning. Their meetings became frequent. Quiet conversations under trees. Walks past the silent health centers he kept documenting. Tola, too, was trapped. Her father had promised her to Sagun, a local businessman who had money and fists. They were two souls caught in the wrong place, dreaming of a life no one around them believed in. 3 months into his posting, Akin was summoned to a meeting with Chief Liani, the most powerful man in Ogidan. "Young man," Chief Liani said, pouring himself a glass of palm wine, "you are making noise that doesn't suit our rhythm." Akin sat stiffly. "I'm only doing my duty, sir. The report I submitted is accurate. The school project in Adebakin Ward is incomplete." Liani leaned back. "You don't understand. You weren't sent here to expose things. You were sent to blend in, to collect your share and keep moving." Akin stood. "If that's what you expect, then I won't last long here." "You're right," Liani said, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You won't." The threats began subtly, late-night knocks on his door, rumors that he was mentally unstable. Then came the break-in. His journal was torn. His reports were stolen. Still, Akin refused to sign the false budget proposals. The town square was packed that afternoon. Banners announcing a community dialogue for unity and progress fluttered above the crowd, but something in the air felt off. Market women closed early, and children were pulled indoors. Everyone sensed the tension. Akin arrived in his neatly pressed shirt, holding a brown envelope filled with documents, evidence of corruption, ghost projects, inflated contracts. He thought this was his chance to speak directly to the people. He believed in discourse, in the power of truth. He stepped onto the platform that had been built in the center of the square, his heart steady. As he began to speak, murmurs rose. Chief Liani sat beneath a large canopy, flanked by armed escorts and political allies, his face stone-like. Then from the crowd, Segun emerged, swaggering forward, pointing at Akin with exaggerated fury. "This man has insulted our land. He has called us thieves. He dares to dishonor our women and question our leaders." Akin tried to respond. "I have only reported the facts. The health center in Akere is a frame without a roof. The school in Odo is a slab of concrete. Liar!" someone shouted. Another voice. "Spy! Government rat!" And then, like a wave breaking, the crowd turned. A stone flew. A bottle smashed at Akin's feet. Someone threw sand in his face. He staggered, trying to shield his eyes. Blood trickled from a gash on his forehead. Women screamed. Men surged forward. Akin stumbled backward. Panic gripped him. In the chaos, he felt his chest tighten, his breath shortening. Then instinct, survival. He reached under his shirt and pulled the small pistol he had hidden weeks ago for protection. One shot. Segun dropped. Akin stared in horror as the body hit the ground. The square fell into stunned silence. For a breathless second, no one moved. Then came the screams. They came for him with ropes and fists. The crowd didn't wait for police. They descended like a wave of rage. His files scattered across the dusty ground, kicked and torn. Akin's glasses cracked beneath someone's heel. Blood poured from a cut above his eye as he was dragged through the square like an animal. Someone spat on him. Another kicked him in the ribs. By the time uniformed officers arrived, it was too late. Akin was already broken, his lips split, his clothes torn, his arms bound behind him with frayed rope. They threw him into the back of a rusty police van without a word. The trial took place 2 days later. A closed courtroom, a judge who didn't look up, no legal representation, no defense, no Tola. Witnesses were barred. The prosecutor spoke for 5 minutes. The verdict took 2. Guilty. Death by hanging. They didn't even remove the rope from his wrists. Kirikiri was a different kind of death. The cell was shared with 6 other men, some murderers, some forgotten names lost in files. The stench of sweat and despair filled the air. Days merged into nights. The food was foul, the guards cruel. Time stopped mattering. Akin stopped writing. He stopped speaking. He sat day after day, staring at the wall, replaying that single shot in his mind. The guilt was a constant presence, heavier than the chains. At night, he whispered apologies to no one, to Sagan, to Tola, to himself. After weeks of silence, he began to dig. At first, with a spoon, then with a shard of metal hidden in his mattress, scraping the same spot beneath his bed, counting strokes to keep his sanity. He was caught once, beaten until he vomited blood. But he continued, quietly, secretly. When he was transferred to Kukuruku prison, it felt like an execution by another name. But inside, something still burned. Not hope. Just the will to survive. Kukuruku prison wasn't just a prison. It was a grave for the living. Carved into a rocky hill and abandoned by history, its blackened walls dripped with decay. No beds, just cold floors, rats, and the smell of old suffering. Akin was no longer a man, just a number, condemned. The guards spoke rarely, and when they did, it was with fists. Food came twice a day, stale bread, gray beans, or oily rice. A cracked pipe served as a shower. The only comfort was the quiet between beatings. But Akin refused to surrender. At night, while others groaned or wept, he scraped. A rusted spoon, smuggled in and sharpened on stone, became his tool. He studied the guards, the keys, the weaknesses in the wall. His fingers bled, his eyes sank. But the tunnel grew. Then came the storm. One thunderous night, Akin crawled through the hole, naked, starving, shaking. On the other side, forest, rain, freedom. He walked toward town, and there a stranger told him Tola was gone. She had taken poison the day after his sentence, her body found in the river. In that moment, the last piece of his past died. He shed his name, took a new one. He joined a gang, then led one. He robbed banks, extorted corrupt officials, set fire to town halls. His targets were always linked to injustice. But his methods were brutal. He was now feared, wanted, hunted. They called him the new man. But in his sleep, he still mumbled verses. Tola didn't die. The poison was a sedative given to her by a midwife who helped stage her death. Her burial was swift and false. That night, she was rescued by Olawale, Akin's childhood friend, who took her far from Ipaja under the cover of darkness. She became Neka, a new identity for a new mission. With Olawale's help, she joined Lighthouse, an underground network exposing government corruption. She published reports anonymously, recorded whistleblower interviews, and moved between safe houses, always looking over her shoulder. Though she fought for justice, her heart never left Akin. Every whisper of a masked man taking revenge on corrupt leaders made her wonder, could it be him? She hoped, she prayed, and while the world thought her gone, Tola's voice became louder than ever, no longer a singer in a bar, but a fighter in the shadows. It was supposed to be a simple assignment. Tola was gathering testimonies at a protest that turned violent in the town of Ogidan. The local archives building had been set on fire by angry youths protesting land theft by government officials. As smoke billowed into the sky, Tola moved carefully, recording video footage, her heart pounding. Then she saw him. At first, it was just a silhouette through the haze, a tall figure dressed in black, standing still amidst the chaos. But as the wind cleared the smoke for a moment, she saw his face, scarred, older, harder, but unmistakably Akin. Their eyes met. He froze. She dropped her camera. "Akin," she whispered, breath caught in her chest. He didn't answer. He turned and ran into the back alley behind the building. Tola chased him. Her feet stumbled over debris, her voice cracking as she called his name again and again. In a narrow alley, he finally stopped, breathing heavily, pressed against a brick wall. He turned slowly. "You're supposed to be dead," he said, voice low. "So were you?" she replied, her eyes filling with tears. He looked at her, unsure whether she was real or another ghost haunting him. Tola stepped closer, but her hands trembled. She had dreamed of this moment for so long, but nothing about it felt right. The man before her was not the boy she had loved. This was someone else, someone broken. "I loved a man who believed in justice," she said, voice shaking. "A man who fought with words, not fire." "I died in that prison," Akin muttered. "Whatever I am now, it isn't him." She raised a pistol, her hand shaking. "I don't know who you are anymore." One tear slipped down her cheek. Then she pulled the trigger. The sound echoed through the alley. Akin collapsed. Tola fell to her knees, sobbing. She hadn't come to kill him, but she also hadn't come to let him remain what he'd become. Akin awoke to the sharp scent of antiseptic and the sound of soft weeping. He was lying on a thin mattress in a dark room, his side burning from the gunshot wound. Light filtered in through broken blinds. At the edge of the room sat Lola, her face streaked with tears, hands trembling as she tried to bandage what she had nearly destroyed. "I didn't mean to," she whispered. "I know," Akin said weakly. "Maybe it was the only way to wake me up." They didn't speak much after that. Words had done all they could. Now they simply sat, side by side, both broken in different ways. In the quiet, they held hands. That night, they wrote a letter together. It was messy, scrawled in both their handwriting, but it was full of truth. They poured their hearts into it, not just to explain, but to ask the world for forgiveness. They stacked papers, poetry, and reports in a neat pile on the table beside the letter. Then they opened the kerosene. Lola lit the match. Akin held her hand. They stood in the center of the room, the fire growing around them, warm for the first time in years. They didn't scream. By morning, there was nothing left but ash and the letter. Olawale arrived too late. The house was empty. The walls still echoed with Akin's voice, but he was gone. Only the letter remained, placed neatly on the desk, beside a worn journal stained with time, sweat, and ash. He unfolded it slowly, hands trembling. "If love cannot save the world, let it at least leave behind something worth saving. We failed, but the dream doesn't have to die with us. It's your turn now." Olawale sat there for hours, the words sinking into him like a slow-burning fire. The sun had long set by the time he stood, Akin's journal in his hands. He took the letter to the rallies. He read it aloud in city squares, on university campuses, and crowded markets. Each word struck like thunder. Each page of the journal became his armor, truth stitched into leather. He became the voice Akin no longer could be. And when people asked him why he kept fighting, through threats, arrests, betrayals, he never gave long speeches. He would simply smile, raise the journal, and say, "Because once a man believed he could change everything, and for a moment he almost did."